we announced a full year loss of €815 million for the last 12 months, compared to a prior year profit of just over €1 billion. Almost all of this was due to the impact of COVID-19 in our business, which has seen our traffic in the last year fall 81%, down to just 27.5 million passengers. We have been prioritising liquidity preservation. We're pleased to say that we closed the year with $3.15 billion of cash. We have introduced extensive cost reduction measures across all 4 of our group airlines. We have eliminated an unprecedented backlog of customer requests and refunds as a result of the COVID-19 disruptions to our schedules. We've minimised job losses thanks to active engagement and pay cut negotiations with our people and our unions across all of our main EU countries. We've announced an increase in the Boeing 737 Gamechanger aircraft order, which has increased from 135 to 210 units in return for a modest price reduction on the cost of those aircraft. We continue to invest heavily in our environmental, social and governance programs. We're pleased that that we've received a first ever B- score from CDP, which is the Carbon Disclosure Project, an independent ratings agency, and we've committed ourselves to increasing that from a B- to an A over the next 2 years. And as a result of Brexit on the 31st of December 2020, we've had to limit the voting rights of non-EU shareholders and restrict their ability to sell ordinary shares since then. Just turning to a couple of themes over the last 12 months. So clearly COVID has devastated the business, but I think we have worked hard over the last year and effectively to reduce costs, to assist millions of passengers who were disrupted. We've laid a platform, I think, by lowering our cost base and engaging with our airports so that we can recover strongly in a post-COVID environment. The COVID-19 has seen the collapse of a number of EU airlines, including Flybe, Norwegian, Germanwings and Level. A number of flag carriers have announced very significant cuts to their capacity, with the result that I think in a post-COVID world, Europe for the next number of years will be operating at about 75 to 80% of its pre-COVID capacity. This is why our Gamechanger order is so important. We'll be taking delivery of 50 to 60 aircraft a year each year for the next 4 years. That means that we can offer our airports and some airports who we presently don't operate at, not just traffic recovery, but growth into the medium term. And in that regard, we've announced 8 new bases for the coming fiscal year, a range of secondary airports, but also new bases at primary airports like Arlanda in Stockholm, Zagreb, Riga in Latvia. And we intend to continue to look for these growth opportunities within Europe, where we can, working with airport partners, restore the traffic that they've lost due to the capacity cuts or failures of their incumbent airlines. We've been very heartened by the rollout of the vaccine programme in Europe. Clearly the UK has led the way, but most European countries have now confirmed that they expect to vaccinate typically around 80% of their adult population with at least the first dose of the vaccine by the end of June. And that, we believe, allows for a removal of many of the travel restrictions into the July, August, September peak travel period, and we expect to see our traffic recover strongly into that period. On environmental issues, we've shown in recent years that we can grow our traffic while reducing our impact on the environment. Every passenger that switches to Ryanair from a legacy carrier in Europe reduces their carbon footprint by approximately 50% per journey. Our new 737 Gamechanger aircraft order means we will be taking delivery of aircraft for the next 4 years that offer us 4% more seats but burn 16% less fuel and also deliver 40% lower noise emissions. And this will help us continue to lower our CO2 footprint as we expand and grow across Europe. I won't deal on the revenues and costs because we've dealt with most of that on the slides, but I'd like to turn now to our thoughts on outlook. The next year ended March 2022 will be challenging. There's considerable uncertainty about the rate and timing of the post-COVID recovery. We are somewhat optimistic. We think that if Europe vaccinates most of its adult population and certainly all of its high-risk groups by the end of June, then there will be increasingly very little justification for the type of travel restrictions, for home quarantine or hotel quarantines that we've seen over the last year. Q1 traffic will, however, be still heavily curtailed. We expect to carry between 5 and 6 million passengers in the June quarter. But we're hopeful that the September quarter will see a significant recovery of traffic and that we'll be able to build on that into the third and fourth quarter of the current year. As a result of that, we're still operating on the basis that our full year travel figures this year would be somewhere between 80 to 120 million passengers. We're at the lower end of that range, but there is a possibility that we could get to the midpoint or higher than the midpoint of that range. That, at this point in time, on the basis of the costs we've already taken out and subject to, obviously, whatever the yields will be, means we think we're operating at somewhere between a small loss to break even for FY 2022. Obviously, there's huge uncertainty around those forecasts and that guidance. But subject to there being to the vaccination program continuing to successfully roll out in Europe, to the removal of most travel restrictions by the end of June, and there being no emergence of any unforeseen variants, then we think those numbers are achievable over the next 12 months. Looking further out and beyond the COVID-19 crisis, Ryanair has used the last 12 months to significantly reduce our operating costs. We're going to expand our ability to grow in the next 4 or 5 years with the game changer order. We'll be expanding in a market in Europe where significant capacity has been taken out by failing by airline competitors that have either failed or that have significantly cut capacity. And we will be competing in the next number of years with a whole series of legacy airlines in Europe who have received huge quantums of state aid. But as a result of receiving that state aid, they've been unable to tackle their high cost base. They will be unable to compete with Ryanair into the future from a cost perspective, although in the short term it's undoubted that we will be facing below cost selling by some of those airlines. We expect to see a strong rebound this summer. There's significant pent-up demand for air travel from families in particular who've been locked up for the last 12 months, and we hope to be able to provide low-cost, on-time, friendly services for those families as the business recovers through the second quarter. And then we would hope that into the third and fourth quarters or the second half of this year, we'll see a return to 80 or 90% of our pre-COVID traffic volumes. The uncertainty is at what the fares will be, and will continue to be load factor active, yield passive. But I have no doubt that Ryanair is going to emerge leaner, stronger, and probably with an accelerated growth profile from the COVID-19 pandemic, and that will in time lead to more secure jobs for our people, lower fares and more choice for our customers, and stronger and better returns for our shareholders.